All right, awesome. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. Today we're joined by Jersey Shore Blue Calls Vice President of Communications, Mr. Greg Giambrese. He's been at the Blue Calls since 2008. He graduated in 2006 from Fordham University with a degree in communications. So again, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Can you just kick things off and take us through your career path from college to your current role?
Yeah, so I grew up in Westwood, New Jersey, up in Bergen County, and late in high school, I decided that I wanted to do broadcasting, and I had sorry, my teeth. Um, so I played baseball in high school and everything. I knew I was never going to play in college, and but I love sports and I like the game and I like following like the announcers and that kind of thing. So when I went to look at schools, I looked at schools where I could have the opportunity to learn and broadcast. So that led me to Fordham. They had a great program there, still do, called WFUV. It's a professional radio station, but the students get to run and work in the sports department. So not only do we get trained by some of the best in the business, guys like Mike Breen and Dave Sims and many others would come in and speak to us. We'd have a different speaker every week, but additionally, we would get to broadcast all the Fordham games, football and basketball at the time. Now they do other sports as well, but back then they weren't doing like streaming of like soccer or baseball or whatever. So we did football and basketball, and then we would get to cover sporting events. So my freshman year was 2002, 2003. So June of 2003, I just finished up my first year, and I got credentials to go cover the Belmont Stakes when Funny Side went for the Triple Crown, and I got to cover the PGA Championship when it was at Baltusrol in somewhere in North Jersey. I forgot the city. Somewhere in 2005, and covered the Yankees. The 2005 season, did the Nets 1 year as well, which was a lot of fun. And you get to go in the clubhouses and interview the players and be around people in the media and in the industry and kind of learn how to conduct yourself and all that stuff. So it was great. And then I graduated from there in 2006, and I was looking for something to do, and I had applied for a researcher position with a TV show called Stump the Schwab. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. Yeah, it didn't make it too many years after I was on it, unfortunately, but Stump the Schwab was a ESPN trivia show, and they had a researcher named Howie Schwab, who was he was Dick Vitale's guy during the college basketball season, and he was one of their researchers. And he had a personality, and he was pretty funny, and he was super smart and knew a lot of trivia and facts and history and everything. And somebody thought that it would be a pretty good show, and it was. So I was a researcher. They had rented an office on 45th Street in Manhattan, not that far from Bryant Park, like two or three blocks up from Bryant Park. And we had like half of a floor of some office building. And we would go in there for 2.5 months. And the first 2 months, we would just research questions. It was the coolest job, except for writing them, which I was hoping to do the next summer, but the show never made it back on. And I got a job at the Blue Claws, and then the show never made it back on. But the writers would write the questions. They would put them in a basket, and then you would go up and take the next one. And then your responsibility was to research the answers. The writer had already put what he or she thought was the correct answer, but as you might know, the quickest, there are two ways for a game show to get booted off the air. Either give somebody credit for a wrong answer, or to give them demerits or knock them off the show for a correct answer. Then that show is done. So we had to triple source every bit of information, and no, you couldn't use Wikipedia, which was in its nascent stages, and it would be like name the name all the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks that went to Alabama. So a question like that would be tricky because while you know all the answers, you have to prove in multiple different places that not only did Bart Starr go to Alabama, Joe Namath went to Alabama, Ken Stabler went to Alabama, but also the other quarterbacks that won Super Bowl didn't go to Alabama. And also that question was phrased poorly, where it said Super Bowl quarterbacks. You would want to phrase that as Super Bowl starting quarterbacks. So anyway, so we did that for 2 months, and then the last 2 weeks of the show they taped it. So by that point, our work as researchers was done, but we would just go up to the studio, which was on 62nd Street and 12th Avenue, and watch the tapings, and it was a blast. So that was really cool. I wish they kept the show on the air. It was a great show. So I did that, and then that fall I got a job working for the US Open tennis tournament. So for the tournament was 2 weeks, and then we would go in like 2 or 3 days before it started. And I was kind of like the producer / swing play-by-play guy for what was called usopen.org radio. So nowadays, when you follow any tennis tournament or golf tournament, they show you every match you could ever want to see. They have cameras running at all times. Every match is broadcast on a video stream, and it's awesome. But back then, this is 2007. No, sorry, 2006. That wasn't the case. So the U.S. Open was at Flushing Meadows in Queens, obviously where it still is, and they would hand out these earbuds to patrons as they came in, or you could, I think you bought them or rented them or whatever. And it was called usopen.org radio. And that's what we did. So we broadcast the day's matches. The first week to week and a half, there was stuff going on all over the grounds at all times. And there were 5 what they called show courts. The main stadium, Arthur Ashe Stadium, and then Louis Armstrong Stadium, which was the main stadium until they built Arthur Ashe Stadium, the grandstand, which is attached to Arthur Ashe Stadium, and then Court 10 and Court 11. But there are like 20 courts. So we could just flip around from wherever you wanted. Most of the time you were in the 3 big stadiums, but not always. And remember, the first week, it's a lot of, Roger Federer against the 107th ranked player in the world that he's going to beat, 6-2, 6-1, 6-2. So you don't need to spend a lot of time on that. You're going to get a lot of Federer as the tournament moves on. So we had one guy did the morning shift, one guy did the late shift, and then I would fill in for a couple of hours in between them, and then fill in where needed. If a guy needed like a break or want to take a little time off or got some lunch or whatever, fill in. So it was a lot of fun. We got paid really well. I loved every minute of it, and I did that for a couple of weeks. I paid more doing that than I might get per hour even now, believe it or not. So 2007, I get a job as an intern with the Blue Claws, strictly broadcasting. And it was a job I got through Fordham. One of the guys that had come to speak to us over the years I was there was Gary Cohen, who is the Mets TV announcer, as you know. So he had listened to my work and my tapes and everything, and was kind enough to put in a good word with the guy who was here at the time. So I got the internship, and it was great. Like I did every game on the air, one way or the other. So if the team was on the road, I would be in the studio doing the pre and post game show from there, and I got paid extra by the radio station to do that. And then if the team was home, I would be in the office, and I would and do a couple of innings of play-by-play with my partner, who was Brendan Burke. You may know the name. He does the Islanders on TV now, and he was in his first year with the Blue Claws. He wasn't the guy who hired me. The guy who hired me left to go get a AAA job right around the time I started, a month into when I started, and then they hired Brendan to come in over the top, and Brendan's gone on to great things. So I did that for a summer, got a lot of reps, good innings, good work, and then from there went on to in 2008 was tough. Like I wasn't working as much as I wanted to. Tried to get some jobs, didn't work out, and I spent most of the time working for ABC Sports Radio, which was really boring. It was good because you meet people and everything, and it was work, but it was boring. So basically, they had a radio network around the country, and we would sit in the, or I, we all have a shift. Uh, there were three like 7 hour shifts a day, and then nobody was on from like 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., something like that. And we would sit up there and do you would clip highlights, you would clip press conferences. So you're basically always running on whatever the big event of the day is. So for example, if it was like if it was the Super Bowl, you would be running on the TV feed, you would be running on the Chiefs radio feed, and you'd be running on the 49ers radio feed, or sorry, and the national feed as well. And then you would get this. Honestly, the Super Bowl was probably easy because it's the only thing going on at that time. But you might have a night shift or like a football Sunday where there's a million things going on, and you're rolling on like literal tape of a million things. You clip everything, and then twice an hour you would send out what they called sports calls, and it was basically just a highlight package that you would send to all of the ABC affiliates all over the country, and then they could get those clips and use them as needed. So it might be like some small radio station in Northern California that's an ABC affiliate, and it would get the 49ers call of some play from the Super Bowl, and they'd have to do the proper crediting and all that stuff, but you would put it in the packet. So anyway, it was fine. It was boring. Then Brennan left to get a job in he got a job doing AAA hockey. That was a full-time job, and he couldn't take the summer off to do baseball. So that worked out great for me because then they had liked my work when I was an intern the year before. I got hired as full-time in 2008, November of 08, and then my first season was 09, and I've been there ever since. So now I started just basically as the broadcaster / media guy, which at the time was a pretty standard position in minor league baseball. So you would have, you would do the website, you would handle the media inquiries and requests, and you'd call the game, and that was it. And nowadays, a lot of those positions, unfortunately, have been moved to part-time. So the broadcasters that are full-time do a lot of other stuff. Some of them do sales. I don't do a ton of sales, but my overall workday will include basically all of the following. So I do our website. I do most of our social media. I do some, not all, not a ton, but some of our graphic design, all the external advertising and marketing, like ads that we run, ad placements. I do that. I manage our ticket database as well. So if our owners want to say like, hey, how are we doing in terms of schools in group outings in 2024 compared to 2023, that's mine. So I'll take care of that. And then a lot of other like miscellaneous stuff. Like I'm like the main liaison between the team and Major League Baseball on the business side, paperwork, that kind of thing, and like the overall team brand. I kind of, if not oversee, but play like a really big role in as well, in addition to the broadcast stuff. So there's a lot, but it's a lot of fun. And, the way that the industry's going in minor league baseball, at least fewer and fewer of us are full-time. So just having the opportunity to stay full-time and get to call the games and, and do the extra work is fun because, honestly, like there's a lot of time where you're not calling a game. So kind of keeps you busy, keeps your mind moving and everything. It's been fun. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded.
No, that was perfect. That was awesome. So you've been at the Blue Claws, you said, since late 2008. Can you discuss like what the culture's like there and what's keeping you there?
Yeah, so it's a great group of people. When I started, we had different owners and a different GM. So, and don't get me wrong, they were awesome too. So our old GM was this guy named Jeff Brown, who had started with the team in 2000, or really late 99. The team's first game was 01. So he was the first employee. He built the whole thing up from scratch. And when I got there, I was kind of like near the end of the early wave of um the early wave of employees and everything. So like I'm still friendly with a lot of people that I worked with at the beginning that aren't there anymore, that they move on to different things or out of in and out of the industry. But um so that was kind of phase one. Jeff left in 2013, and then we kind of had like an interim period in phase two, and then the team got sold in 2017 to a group called Shoretown Baseball, and they had owned a bunch of other minor league teams and kind of got out of it and decided to come back in, and they came on back then and are still there as the owners of the team, and the new GM and everything. But it's been fun. Really the people are awesome. I've made several lifelong friends from working in there, and it's been a real pleasure over the years. One of my favorite parts about doing it and is the people that you see only during the season. So that might be managers, coaches, opposing broadcasters, opposing coaches, official scores, press box workers, all that. And it's a unique industry and a unique field. You will go quite literally weeks, months, years without seeing some of these people, and then you see them again and you just literally pick up right where you left off in conversation. And it's really cool. And every year, most years, we get to travel out to a minor league baseball or major league baseball meeting in the fall, which is and you see a lot of people from around the industry that are doing what you do. And it's different in that we compete on the field sort of with other minor league teams, but in reality it doesn't matter. We the Phillies provide the players, and we call the games and put on the shows, and that's it. And then in the business side of it, you don't really compete with the Greensboro Grasshoppers or the Hudson Valley Renegades or the Brooklyn Cyclones, because there's no fan that is going to go to both stadiums. There's no fan that's going to be a season ticket holder in both places. There's no fan that's going to bring their Little League team to both places, or any of those places. You go where you are. So we can pull ideas from other teams and share ideas and talk with other teams about what's worked and what doesn't on the business side. And that's not something that you get in a lot of other places. It's it's really cool, like insurance, like a car insurance or something, right? You can buy any type of car insurance in any type of state as long as they're licensed there. So, car insurance company one is not going to share tips with car insurance company number two because they compete with each other. But, we can learn stuff from the Frisco Rough Riders, and they'll tell us all about whatever they did that worked and why and how and everything. And it's pretty special.
One large part of the communication industry is, maintaining that positive press. So can you talk about a time when there's been, negative press associated with the ball club and how you and your team navigated it?
Yeah, let's see. That's a good question. I wouldn't call it negative press per se, but we had the season canceled. So from COVID. So one of the things that I do is I also do all of our communication to ticket holders. So in addition to communication to the general public, where we're pushing out stories and everything, which is really hard. I'll come back to that in a second. But we do communication to the ticket holders. So, if you think back to COVID, you guys are in high school probably, and March of 2020, I'm actually so everything kind of went to hell or everything was really shut down by Monday the 16th of 2020 of March. And if you remember, the Dropkick Murphys did a show that they streamed online on St. Patrick's Day, which was Tuesday the 17th, which was the first or second day that everybody was really like locked down. Saturday the 14th, so a couple days before that, I'm literally in a wedding, and we're online getting ready to be introduced as a groomsman. And I get a text from my boss and says, "Hey, I talked to the town. they think we should shut the office starting Monday, and we're going to have a conference call tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to go over everything. Fine. Little did we know that we wouldn't get back in the office fully until the following year. That's not to say we didn't do events or work or anything, but that's kind of what it was. So the whole thing goes on for a few months, and at some point we figured out that we weren't going to play, but it wasn't our announcement to make of the cancellation of the season. That was minor league baseball's. So, we just had to stay in constant communication with fans and prepare a plan. And basically what's going to happen is, at some point, whenever we announce that this thing is not going to be, that this season is not going to be played, we have to reach out to everybody and then attempt to get them to roll their tickets over into next year, so we don't have to give the refunds back. And we did a good job. And then you want to, every statement that you write has to be handled carefully, because while we're devastated not to play baseball, thousands and thousands of people, and it turned out to be millions around the world, lost their lives because of COVID. So you can't make light of everything, and you just got to tread lightly, be careful. So we had written we wrote all the releases and had all the quotes and everything, and this was in like May. We kind of figured out it wasn't going to happen until early June. We didn't announce it until July 1st that there was going to be no season, but by that point it became quite obvious. So we wanted to write a video. We wanted to make a video, and I didn't really have a lot of video making experience, but honestly, I kind of like taught myself a little bit because we all had time. So I'm like, all right, I wrote the whole script out. I took all these shots myself. And, basically every three words to a sentence had its own shot in the video, be it of the empty seats or the scoreboard or mini golf course or whatever, and put the whole thing together. And, I thought it captured the right mood and the right tone. And, and that was it. That's one example. We rebranded in 2020, so later that year, October of 2020, we rebranded from Lakewood Blue Claws to the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. And, most of that was obviously all positive. You get a lot of comments on social media. The bigger thing you do, the less likely you are to please everybody. That's just the way it is. So a lot of people really didn't like it. They didn't like the logo. They didn't like the fact that we were changing the name from Lakewood to Jersey Shore. So sometimes you respond. Most of the time you don't. I think that's another thing on social media. You just gotta, you gotta trust that everything will. A lot of times, your statements will be not cleaned up. That's the wrong way to put it. But people's comments will be answered by other people, and that will make more of an impact than you answering it. Another example was from the year before that. In 2019, we did a Pride Night at our ballpark, and that was the first time we did a Pride Night. Now everybody does them, but back then, not everybody did a Pride Night, and that's major league and minor league. It was a little bit of a different time, even though it was only 5 years ago. So, as you may know, Lakewood is heavily Orthodox, and there were Orthodox Jewish, and there were a lot of rabbis from Lakewood and from Brooklyn that did not approve of us doing a Pride Night. And when we put out the release, we got a lot of negative comments from them, and they were planning protests and all that stuff. And we were getting spam calls in the office. We were getting a lot of comments on our social media, and we felt that we were in the right to do it. We weren't offending anybody. We were just doing a Pride Night, and we were going to give out a Blue Claws hat that had the logo in like the Pride rainbow flag on the hat, and then do fireworks, and it was going to be a pretty standard night. And we got a lot of negative comments, and there was one rabbi that wanted to do this big protest outside the stadium, and it was pretty significant. we got a lot of free publicity from it. And it worked out in our favor without question, because essentially we were getting calls from all over the place to respond to this rabbi. And we did not want to get into the weeds and argue anything. We just prepared a short, simple statement. It was something to the effect of Blue Claws baseball is for everyone, and we're excited to host our first Pride Night this week, yada yada yada. So a couple days before the game, which is on a Saturday, night, there's this protest is going on. So we had live news coverage from two stations. I think News 12 was here, and then one of the Philadelphia stations like came out and did live hits at this protest. And all we did, we had like our marquee on the corner of the street and just put the Blue Cross logo with the pride flag on it. And they were interviewing fans in the parking lot. And like, the fans are going to be supportive if they're going to go on the camera. And sometimes you just got to let it play out. And I think, those worked out really well.
And in sports also, the cool thing is there's never like a guaranteed result. There's always uncertainty. So based on that, can you speak upon like the promotion approach from your behalf when the team's doing really well versus maybe not so as much?
So the beauty of what we do is that, and it's a little different than at the big league level or whatever, is it doesn't matter if we win or lose. So of course you want to win. And, in my role specifically, I spend parts of every day with the manager and the coaches and the players. So some of my favorite people that I've worked with in my years in baseball are former managers or coaches or players that we've had. And some of them I will consider friends for many, many years, and we'll stay in touch long after we're both gone from baseball. But as far as doing our job, it doesn't matter if they win or lose. So essentially, we'll try to do publicity hits at the beginning of the season. And then as the season goes on, we don't have a beat writer that's there every day, but, we'll try to get guys out to cover specific stories. So, for example, last year we had a bunch of players that played on Team Australia in the World Baseball Classic. So that was a story that they did. We had a guy from Pennsylvania who was 27 and was against essentially the pro baseball equivalent of a walk-on, and ended up at Double-A by the end of the year. So that was a story that we tried to push. If you have top prospects, sure, those guys will come out to cover those kinds of stories as well. We had a number of years ago, we had a guy named Mark Leiter Jr. So you guys probably know who Al Leiter is, played for the Mets and a bunch of other teams. His brother, Mark, played for the Phillies, and Mark's son, Mark Jr., still in the big leagues. He was with the Cubs last year, had a really good year, played for us in 2014 and 13 and 14. So Mark went to Toms River North, which is 6 miles from the stadium. So that story, that's an easy one. That writes itself. So stuff like that. But then, the stuff that but the thing is, you don't get as much coverage as you would hope from the local paper. How many of you guys read the local paper? Exactly. So at some point, we kind of stopped worrying about it. It used to bother me. So we had a beat writer from the beginning of the team through 2014, and then going into 2015 or maybe 2016, they just cut the position, which honestly, it bothered me at first, and then now it doesn't, because realistically, like, people don't really read it. So, we try to, that's not to say that we don't try to push stories or get stuff in the other sections of the paper, but, it's more like pushing stories for National Girls and Women in Sports Day last week to try to get them to come out and do stories on the women in our office, which I tried to do. And to this point, I was told I had a guy coming and having it. So we'll see. We have a female development coach. She's 24 years old. She played baseball at the University of Rochester. She played for the United States women's national baseball team. Her name is Beth Greenwood. I've never met her, but I know she'll be our development coach this year, and she's definitely going to be the subject of a few stories that we push, because that's an amazing story right there. Our manager, one of the guys got a kick out of this last year. Our manager, his name is Greg Brodzinski. He has three brothers, Pete, Steve, and Mike. And they were named after Mike Schmidt, Pete Rose, Steve Carlton, and he's named after Greg Luzinski. Four members of the 1980 world champion Phillies that were his father's favorite team. And that's a cool story too, that writes itself. So, you take the best, you take what's available and try to push them out. I don't really lose a lot of sleep over it. I'd rather have have fun, exciting, engaging like social media posts than if you're telling me I have a choice, because that stuff has a better opportunity to move the needle. The original statement of the games don't matter meaning, when we try to sell tickets, yeah, if the team is good, that's good, of course. But in reality, it's not a big deal either way, whether or not the team is good, because people come out for the fireworks and they come out for a nice relaxing night with friends and family, and they come out for the music. Like, we have bands and that sort of thing. They come out with their kids' schools, they come out with their youth sports teams. They don't come out because the team is good or bad. They come out for the other stuff. So that's what we worry about.
The next part of the meeting, I want to kind of just give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves and ask a question.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, that'd be awesome. But one other thing though.
Yeah, of course.
So I broadcast some good teams. My first 2 years, they won the championship, and some real shit teams. And the one thing I'll say is, when I was in college, one of the guys that would come to talk to us all the time was Dave Sims. And Dave now he's the voice of the Seattle Mariners on TV. Does a great job. And he's one of the nicest guys ever. He's from Philly, and he used to do Temple football. And Temple football has had its ups and downs, but for many, 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 many years, they were horrible. And if they won 3 games, that was a magnificent season. And Dave did the games back then. And when I was at Fordham, my freshman year, the team was 2-26. And my second year, they were 6-22. And this always resonated with me. And somebody in one of my classes, or one of the group sessions or whatever, asked him, he's like, so the teams won 6 games or something in the last 2 years, whatever. What kinds of challenges is it, and do you find it hard or whatever to stay energized and put everything you have into these games? And Dave said, I did Temple football for many years, and they won, I don't know, 6 games in 4 years, whatever, 6 games in a couple of years, whatever. And one day I did the game, and afterwards I called my dad he listened to the game, and I asked him what he thought, and he said, David, just because they suck doesn't mean you have to. So that always kind of stuck with me. And no matter what happens on the field, you still have a responsibility to drum up, the publicity and sell the tickets and everything. But specifically talking about on the air, you have a responsibility to your listeners, however big or how small that audience is to make them feel that they're at home listening to the game, and that you're somebody that they want to sit there and have a drink with, and be conversational and descriptive, and make them feel like they can enjoy the game no matter what the score is. So anyway, that was always important. That was something that always stuck with me from what he said. So yes, I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Awesome. Brandon P, you want to introduce yourself and then ask a question if you have one?
Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm a Phillies fan and also a Blue Calls fan.
Okay,
Um,
awesome.
Honestly, I mean, I've probably been going to games since you started at the Blue Calls.
Where are you from?
I'm from Howell,
Okay, cool.
so I'm not too far. My uncle will always get us tickets, and I just think it's so cool, what you're doing and everything. Um, I don't know, how is it when you see players who used to play, or people who used to play for the Blue Calls, go up to like AAA and then the Phillies and all that? How is it?
Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, my first manager was Dusty Wathan, who's the Phillies third base coach now. He might be the nicest guy I've ever met doing this. And I'm glad that he's stuck through a lot of different managers up there, and he's found a spot on this staff and everything. I thought when Girardi got fired that he might get a shot, and obviously they went with Thompson, and that proved to be the right move. But yeah, he was a great guy. It's cool. Rhys Hoskins was the first big name, I guess, that we had that kind of became firmly entrenched with a good Phillies team. But we had Bryson Stott, we had Alec Boehm, and I know them pretty well, not crazy well because they were only here for a month each. But I did go see. We had Boehm in 19, and I went to Lehigh, some hot stove event they were doing to interview him last winter. So that would have been January of 23. So I hadn't seen him in almost 4 years. And he was only there for a month. He remembered me and he was awesome. He's a really nice guy. I know he got a lot of shit for that "I fucking hate this place" thing, but that was funny and he got through it and it worked out. Yeah, but it's definitely cool. The nicest guy that I think we've ever had player was Logan O'Hoppe, who was here in 2021 for almost the whole year, all but the last like 3 or 4 weeks when he got promoted to AA. And he ended up getting traded last year at the deadline to, or sorry, 2 years ago, 22, at the deadline to the Angels, and is just, just one of the all-time good guys. So he will always have a fan in me. So yeah.
It's great. Recall me if I'm incorrect, but did Johan Rojas also play on the Blue Calls? I forget.
Yeah, he did. So he was here in the end of 21 and then the first half of 22 and got sent straight to Reading. Yeah. The thing with him is he's jacked. Like, you look at him and you see like, well, he's a 21-year-old center fielder that runs like the wind, and you don't think that he's jacked, and then you like actually meet him and see him, he's jacked. He's really strong. He's super fast. He gets great jumps. Hopefully he can stick and hit enough. But yep, we had him. We had Derek Hall, who was there in 2022, but not really that much in 2023. We had Ranger, we had Sir Anthony Dominguez in 16, Ranger in 17. So yeah, we've had a good few guys here.
So cool.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ava H, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ava.
Hi.
I'm actually also from North Jersey. I heard you say Westwood.
Westwood.
I'm from West Milford, so
Oh, nice. Yeah.
more north. I really want to get into like the social media and like the graphic design stuff in the
Yeah.
sports industry. Do you have any like advice?
So we had see, the thing, that's a good one because I feel like you need less experience to break in there. The broadcasting stuff is really hard. A lot of people want to do it. Not everybody really can do it. And then it's tougher to break in. But nowadays, everybody looks for graphic designers and everybody looks for social media people, and they kind of go hand in hand. But to be a big league graphic designer, you don't need all these years doing minor league baseball. You just need a clever personality and be a good thinker to do the social media stuff, and then have the chops to do the graphic design. So there's a lot of ways to learn and teach yourself and practice, and I would do all of that. We just hired someone. She's 23, 24, 25. She just graduated from TCNJ a couple of years back and was working for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm sorry, my fault. The Oklahoma City Dodgers, their AAA baseball team. And then she's going to come back here in the next week or two and get going here. So yeah, she's really young, but she had the skills and she had enough experience, and she's going to do a great job. But yeah, she's young. She can do it. You just have to have the chops. I would just practice. The thing is, a lot of teams, the big thing on the graphic design are these like infographics. So everybody wants clever graphics that say, "Oh, pitchers and catchers report today," or 50 days till opening day. And you can make those look super fancy, and you can practice just getting pictures off the internet. And then as for the social media stuff, you have your own, your own profile, your own ideas, and I would mark everything that you like and just go from there, and then just send stuff out and try to get an internship somewhere, and then that's the best way to start.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, would you like to go?
Yeah, so I'm Frank.
Hi, Frank.
I've been to my fair share of Blue Cross games. I'm fairly close to Lakewood, so I go
Okay,
usually when I get the chance. I'm from Wall, so not too far.
cool.
And I guess my question is, you've been there since 2009, so you've probably seen your fair share of players that the Blue Cross have played against. So who's the best
Yeah.
player you've seen the Blue Cross play against?
Okay, that's a great question. Um, the best player is Bryce Harper. So we had him in 2011. He was in the league the same year as Manny Machado. Machado was the third pick in 2010 for Baltimore and played for Delmarva in our league. And then Harper was the first pick, obviously, with the Nationals. So I don't remember the circumstances, but we never saw Machado. And we played Delmarva so often, and that I can't imagine we didn't play them in the first half of the season. Actually, I'm going to look it up. But we didn't play him. He must have been injured at the time that we faced them, or maybe we didn't play. So I never saw him, but we saw Harper. And Harper's thing was a big circus. So they would get into a city. Remember, you're taking buses everywhere. They would get into a city at 3 or 4 in the morning, and there'd be 50 people at the hotel wanting his autograph at 4 in the morning. It was crazy. And he's only 17 at the time. So maybe, no, he's 18 at the time. But if you remember, what he did was he had actually left high school 1 year early and then played at JUCO for a year so he could get drafted early. Like he was basically 1 year younger than he would have been if he stayed in high school. So, he's a really young guy. He was kind of fiery. And yeah, so we did play Delmarva in the first half, but he must have been injured because we definitely never saw him. Machado, I'm talking about, but we saw Harper. So, it was crazy. So they opened the year, Hagerstown, that year, in Georgia. So nobody saw them from the media up in Maryland. So we go to Hagerstown in April of 2011. It's like the second or third week of the season, and it's Harper's first home game. So the place is a zoo. Now they don't draw that well normally, but not this week. Packed. There's no seating in the press box. It's really small, and they did whatever they could to fit as many people as possible in there. But I had my little spot to broadcast the game, and I got to the stadium at like 2 in the afternoon. Game's at 6:30 or 7, and it's a big. The stadium's really old. They actually knocked it down, but it's really old, and they have this grandstand with a roof on it, and then the press box is on top of the roof of the grandstand. So to get up there, you would walk up the back of the grandstand, and they had this spiral staircase, and you have to trudge all the equipment up the spiral staircase, get up there, walk back like towards the field on the roof of the building, and then go in the press box. So finally get everything in there, pain in the neck, start unpacking, and I see this older guy who's in there, and he worked for some radio station in Hagerstown that probably had like 30 watts, and he's about 70 years old, 75 years old. And then we're talking for a while I set up my stuff. And he said, and the guy goes, yeah. I said, how's the Harper Mania or whatever? And he said, this is the biggest thing to come through Hagerstown since Robert E. Lee. Because the Civil War, there was a Civil War battlefield in Antietam. One of the bloodiest battle in the Civil War's history was at Antietam, 10 miles down the road. And the armies both marched through Hagerstown on the way to ultimately to Gettysburg, whatever. So, yeah, the biggest thing to come through since Robert E. Lee. So that was funny. And then a month later, they come to Lakewood, and total circus. It was crazy. So we're told he speaks to the media 1 day per series. So after the first day, so we have to make sure that we told everybody, and we're getting inquiries from national organizations and everything because this was the only time that Harper was going to be up in this area or whatever. So he comes out, and the series was, I want to say, Friday to Monday. Friday night we had the biggest crowd, and he struck out a couple times, got a hit. He was the strikeout player of the game. So whenever he struck out, everybody got an IHOP coupon that he got a kick out of, and the media got a kick out of that too. So we do that, and then Saturday we play, and he hits one of the more impressive home runs I've ever seen. It was a fastball, like 92, 93, down and away, and he just flicks it with his with his wrists and just hits a line drive on all wrist. Line drive onto the berm above the left field wall. The ball got out of here in like a second and a half, and it turned out to be the only run of the game, and they won 1-0. Unbelievable. So him, the late Jose Fernandez was sensational. We saw him in 2012 a bunch of times, and he passed away a couple years after that. That was just terrible. But yeah, him. Those are probably the two best opposing players. The best Blue Claws were, I would say, the two best Blue Claws were Andrew Painter, who is the Phillies' top pitching prospect. He pitched with us for a couple of months in 2022. Unfortunately, he had Tommy John surgery, so he's going to miss all of this year and missed all of last year. And then the other one was Sixto Sanchez. When those two guys pitched, it was an event. And Sixto was unbelievable. He was 18 when he pitched for us, just like 100 miles an hour right in the black, nasty curveball, unhittable at our level. And he got promoted in July. And unfortunately, he got traded in the JT Real Muto trade, but then just can't stay healthy. And he's never going to live up to his potential. But he was phenomenal. Whenever he pitched, it was an event. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for coming on here.
You're welcome.
Ava, would you like to go?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ava, and
Hi.
my question is about, you'd mentioned you have like a lot of different tasks that you take on in your
Yeah.
position right now, and I'm just wondering how you manage your time with all of them.
Good question. So it depends on the time of the year. Basically, you try to do as much before the season as possible. And then when the season starts, it's just more plug and play. And then you can focus on the games, because you can't you can't do anything involving the game until the game starts. But in the off season, we can plan out all of our advertising campaigns and come up with a lot of good ideas that we want to use on social media and kind of lay everything out. We can make a lot of the ads that we're going to run. So, for example, our graphic designer will be tasked with making all of the online digital ads that we'll run during the season. So, we'll run ads for opening day and fireworks nights and Irish Heritage Night and this bobblehead night and that bobblehead night and Marvel night and whatever. But in reality, in almost all of those cases, she can make those ads now, because with the possible exception of a few giveaway items that we might not have pictures of, for the most part, we're good to go. And then if we get some prospect that is unbelievable that we want to feature in an ad, okay, we'll swap that in later on. But a lot of that stuff we can map out now. We'll run TV commercials, so our videographer can basically get to work on those, because in reality, the best footage that we're going to get during the season, we're not going to get till June or July anyway. So because we don't want to show pictures or videos of people wearing winter hats or heavy coats, even if it's a sellout crowd on opening night. Odds are it's going to be in the 50s or 60s or whatever. It'd be cool. We want to show those people wearing t-shirts or baseball caps as opposed to jackets and winter hats, just because it looks like it's a summer venue. So we want to show people in the summer. So yeah, you try to plan out a lot of that stuff in advance. As far as like they do the ticket database, as I had mentioned. So one of the things with that is, going over call lists for the ticket reps. So like, all right, I'm in charge of making sure that all of the schools in our database get reached out to by one of two people. So I make sure that they have everything they need to reach out to those people. We're going to send email blasts out. And then how do we time it? So we send out the email blast and then they follow up with the calls. So a lot of it is just spreading out your time and making sure that everything you can do early, you do early, so that once the season starts, you can kind of just focus on the season. The one thing I will say though is, doing this for a number of years, no matter how much prep work that you do, you can do a lot. No matter how much prep work you do, you will never, ever, ever have a smooth run into opening day, because there will always be 2, 3, 4, or 10 things that pop up that you're just not going to predict, or something's going to be harder than than it looked, or things are going to change, or budgets or whatever. So you just got to be flexible and be ready to, be ready to work on, stay on your feet kind of thing. That would be the best advice I could give you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Benicio, would you like to introduce yourself, my man?
Hi, I'm Benicio. Sophomore here at Monmouth. I'm a communication major, and I would like to know what your typical workday looks like during the season and during the off season.
Sure. So during the off season, again, it kind of depends on the time of the year. The fall is definitely the quietest time of this season. Just to use tomorrow as an example, let's see. Tomorrow, all right, gonna go in. Then I will be doing, I have to do some database work. We're gonna send out an email blast to one of the, a couple of niches in our ticket system. Then I have to go film a video with our mascot, our videographer, and one of the committee, one of the Monmouth County commissioners at a park in Red Bank. So we'll do that. Then I'll come back to the office. We're going to talk about our phone system, which I also oversee, and if we should upgrade it. I'm voting for yes. Then a meeting with a potential advertiser. Then we have our department meeting at 2:30 or 3 o'clock, which is where we meet with members of our marketing team and promotions team, and just to make sure that everything's on the same page, and the sponsorship team as well. So that's tomorrow. And then let's see what we got as another day. Thursday, I have to go to the bank at 9:30 because we are notarizing a document for our 50/50 raffle for the Blue Cross charities, of which I'm on the board. Then I have to come back and work with our production person and write PA reads. I have a conference call at 1, another conference call at 2, one about the website and one about digital advertising. So that's just to give you an example of those couple of days. When the season starts, if we have a game, if we have a night game and we play the day before, I usually get there around 10. And then the first thing I always do is print out the stats for the manager and the or both coaching staffs, and then the press, because printing out the stats is annoying and it takes a while depending on how much information your manager wants. And our manager kind of likes a lot of stuff, so that takes a little while. So I do that first, so I get out of the way, and then I bring it to the 2 clubhouses. Then I do whatever other work that has to be done. Might be a couple social media posts. Odds are the night before I did half of our game notes after the game the day before. So are you guys familiar with game notes? How many of you guys like broadcast? A few? Okay. So our game notes are used for, I'm going to show you. As a matter of fact, can I, maybe I can. Dan, if you want to let me share my screen, I'll show you something. But it says you host
Good.
has disabled sharing. But anyway,
Give it a go
so
now. Give it a go now. You might be okay. I just made you.
all right,
co-host.
yeah, there we go.
Sweet.
All right. So can you guys see this?
Yep.
You can see the notes?
Yep. It's what the from the shore to the show, right?
No. Hold on. There we go. How about now?
Got it.
All right. So, yeah, these are our game notes. They're used for the press and the broadcasters. So usually what I'll do is at the end of a game, I'll go through and update this part. All the records, all the stats. Records, last time this happened, who's pitching, the bio sheets of all the players, the bio sheets of all the pitchers, when did they last pitch, yada, yada, yada. Multi-hit games, record against the league. It's all mindless stuff, but you just have to put it in every day, because if you fall behind it, it's even harder and harder. You're never going to catch up. So you do it every day. And usually what I do is I do this at night when I come home from the stadium or do it at the stadium before I leave, and it doesn't take that long. Then the next morning, I do this. So this is the text part, which you probably can't read it, but so it might have like recaps or other notes about the Blue Claws in elimination games or this, that, and the other thing. During the season, it would be so and so is on a 10-game hitting streak, so and so is player of the week, yada yada yada. So I'll do that. I'll finish it up in the morning, print those out, and have that ready to go. Then we usually have a staff meeting at 1 o'clock to get ready for the game that night. I might have to do an email blast or whatever, promote what other games are coming up over the weekend, maybe another social post. Then usually after the staff meeting, I'll go in the clubhouse and talk to the manager, see if he needs anything. If we have any media coming that day or requests for him, I'll let him know. And then at that time, usually some of the players are starting to trickle in, so I'll try to talk to them. Usually talk to the players in the clubhouse before they get going for the day is the best time to get good information that you can then use on the broadcast. So I always like to do that. And I always like to make a pass through the clubhouse at least once during the game just to see anybody. If anybody has a question for me, they can ask me. If somebody wants to change their walk-up song, like I just want to be present, because the more present you are, then the more likely the player will open up to you with good stories and good anecdotes later on. So then I'll have our lineup, and there's a decent chance I'll have the other team's lineup by that point. So if I do, I will then start out making my scorebook. I'll have to make the graphic for social media with the lineup, get the lineups printed and edit up, and get them up to the press box. Then before the game, if there's like a radio station coming out that I've worked with to set up, make sure that they're set up in the right spot. Any other meetings that we might have before the game, knock those out. Then BP will usually end at 5. When BP is over, I'll go back through the clubhouse again just to check in with the manager and the coaches, talk with any players. If there's media that does a pregame interview, they usually do it right after BP. So we do that, and then go upstairs, have dinner, and do the game, and then do it all over again. And then if it rains and we have to tarp the field after the game, probably we have to come in a little early in the morning to take it off the next day. Generally, that would be 9 o'clock, and I'll come in at 9 to do that instead of 10 or 10:30.
So you call games and you would take off the tarp?
Yeah,
Oh, wow. So I guess is that just how it is in the minor leagues?
that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for joining us on this meeting. Very interesting information.
No problem. You guys have any other questions?
Dan, you got anything, my man?
Hi, Greg. How you doing? Thank you
Hi,
so
Dan.
much for joining this.
Yeah.
My question to you, because I'm a broadcaster for WMCX at Monmouth. I'm our main play-by-play guy. I'm the sports director here.
Did you do the game on Thursday against William and Mary?
I did.
Oh, I was there.
Huh. It was a
My
good
friend
game.
went to William and Mary, and he'd been bugging me for like 3 months to go to that specific game. So, yeah, I went with him.
It was a good game. Hopefully you were rooting for Monmouth, but
Yeah, it was. Do you know Tony Graham at all?
I don't.
You've probably seen him around. Older guy. He was the beat writer for the Blue Claws for many years and for Monmouth for many years. Now he's retired from the press, and he is my color guy. So he does. He just sits in the booth with me and does color.
Really cool.
Nice guy. He's there
I
at
know-
Monmouth all the time.
I know you know Matt Harmon, who's this club's advisor.
Yeah.
So I work with him very closely. But as a coming up and aspiring young broadcaster, is there any advice you'd give to me to help me work on my broadcasting, all around broadcast?
Yeah, a couple things. One is write down as many descriptive words as possible. So if you're doing a baseball game, you have how many different ways can a ball be hit on the ground to short? You can say that. You can say grounds to short, hard hit. Did he go to his left? Did he go to his right? Did he backhand it? Did he glove side it? Field it between his legs? Did he smoothly field it? Did he charge it? Is it hard hit, softly hit? two hopper, three hopper, chopper, whatever. But there are going to be so many ground balls to short every day that you have to be, you're going to bore everybody if you keep saying every ground ball to short is a ground ball to short. So that's one thing I would definitely do. And in basketball, it's the same thing. He passes it, he fires it, he bounces it, chest pass, whatever. Write down as many descriptive words as you can to describe all different types of action, and then just read them. And then when you read them, they'll get stuck in your head. And when you need them, they'll be there for you. That's definitely one thing. Another thing is listen back to your calls, even if it's months, weeks after. So you've kind of forgotten a little bit about the specific play, and see if you can piece it together based on what you heard. So what I mean by that is you describe an offensive possession, and can you tell where everybody touched the ball, how the ball moved from point A to point B, where the guy shot it from, and what did that possession look like? If you don't remember it, if you listen back to your call from Thursday, you might remember the sequence a little bit, but if you listen back to your call from November, you might not. So, see if you can piece that together. And then the other thing is make sure that you beat the crowd. The coolest thing in play-by-play is when you beat the crowd. But if you don't beat the crowd, it's also the worst, because beating the crowd is telling the audience what happened before they know. And that's essentially what you're trying to do. If I call a home run and the crowd cheers before I say that it's a home run, they already, they know what happened. If a guy's rounding, second going to third and there's a play at third, you have to be the one who says safe or out before the crowd's reaction. So always make sure that, that you're beating the crowd. That's important.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Brandon, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brandon. I'm the vice president of the club, and a
Hi,
question
Brandon.
I had was, do you have any advice for college students who are searching for internships, maybe like struggling to get one?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I would just keep plugging away. I know you've probably heard that a million times. I know it's really hard. But utilize any resources that that you might have. Even if it's me, like I'll happily, if I know somebody at a place you're applying, I'll reach out. I can't, obviously nobody can promise anything, but getting those internships are really important. As I said before, I've actually had a relatively small amount of jobs. I've had this one for a long time, but everything that I've done, I got because of a connection from somebody that I had worked with previously. Even the US Open ones I got because the Fordham station would always cover the US Open pretty comprehensively with media credentials or whatever. So by doing that, they knew everybody. And that position that I did for 2 years in 06 and 08, I did working for a guy that I knew from that knew WFUV. So, I would just say keep plugging away. Don't be afraid to leave if it's, maybe you've graduated and you have an opportunity to go. If you want to be on air, go be on air somewhere. And then don't be afraid to take any job at a radio station or whatever, because you never know who you're going to meet and what opportunities may present themselves.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And my name is Luca. I'm the president of the club. Thank you again so much for coming here
Of
today.
course.
I work with the New York Red Bulls game day communication staff. I have aspirations of working within the communications field within the professional sports leagues and whatnot. So what advice would you give? I'm a senior right now, so I'm doing my last semester here. What advice would you have for going through the interview process and the application process?
I would say, again, don't be afraid to get a little bit out of your comfort zone. If that means a different sport, or if that means a different location, that's fine. Just get your foot in the door and start to meet people. And then, you can't apply for too many jobs You only need one person to say yes. But just because a job that's available, you view it and you say, well, maybe I'm not the perfect fit for that. Apply for it anyway. You never know what's going to happen. It might be a circumstance where you start talking to the person who's hiring and they say, hey, I don't know if you're perfect for this, but I like you and I think you'd be a good fit. I want to put you in touch with somebody. You never know. And if you didn't apply for that job that you thought was maybe like a B+ fit for you instead of an A+, then you might not have ever met that person. We've hired people before that, or I've interviewed people before that like, hey, I don't have anything for this person, but they're really good. Talk to them, and it's worked out. So yeah, that would be the big thing.
Thank you. And then one last thing before we hop
Are you
off.
working the Italy game?
Oh, that I'm not sure about yet, but I hope to. I'm a big
My
Italy
brother and
fan.
my dad are going. They're
Nice.
they're excited. Yeah.
I'm just saving all my money up for the World Cup final in MetLife in 2 years, so I'm willing to go
Keep
into debt for
saving.
that.
Keep
That's
saving. You
easy.
might have to eat ramen noodles for 2 years to afford that. That's gonna be brutal. That's gonna
Yeah.
be 5,000 to get in, I would imagine. Yeah.
Minimum at least, but I'm looking forward to it.
That'd be awesome. That'd be cool. Yeah.
For sure. But just one last thing before we hop off again. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
hopping on. Do you mind putting some sort of like contact information, whether it's an email or LinkedIn within the chat?
Yeah.
So students can connect with you?
Yeah. Where's the chat? Okay. So email, and then send you my LinkedIn here, which is. So yeah, feel free to reach out anytime. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn anytime. If you guys want to come out to a game, individually or multiple people, let me know. I'd be happy to take care of tickets and show you guys around the press box in the production room. Ava, if you're interested in graphic design, if you want to come in the office one day and sit down with myself and our designer, and we'll kind of just show you for a couple hours what we kind of do. You might get a kick out of that and learn something. So we'd be happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, you too.